The year was 1939, a time of great uncertainty and looming conflict. Heinrich Harrer, a young and ambitious Austrian mountaineer, set his sights on Nanga Parbat, the ninth highest mountain in the world. This formidable peak, often referred to as the Killer Mountain, had claimed many lives and was known for its treacherous conditions. The majestic Himalayas beckoned to Harrer, whispering promises of glory, adventure, and the ultimate test of human endurance. The allure of conquering such a formidable peak was irresistible. Driven by dreams of conquest and the desire to etch their names in the annals of mountaineering history, Harrer and his companions embarked on their daring expedition. They were fueled by a passion for exploration and the thrill of the unknown. Little did they know that their grand adventure would soon be overshadowed by the outbreak of World War II, a conflict that would change the course of history. As Harrer and his team scaled the icy heights of Nanga Parbat, news of Germany's invasion of Poland reached them, casting a dark shadow over their expedition. Their expedition, once filled with hope and ambition, was abruptly halted. They were now considered enemies of the British Empire, their dreams of conquest replaced by the harsh reality of war. The descent from Nanga Parbat was a jarring transition from the freedom of the mountains to the captivity of war. The once exhilarating climb had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. The Himalayas, which had once symbolized ambition and the spirit of adventure, now represented a distant and unattainable dream. The mountains stood as silent witnesses to their shattered hopes. Despite the dire circumstances, Harrer was determined to escape and taste freedom once more. His indomitable spirit and unwavering resolve would not be easily broken, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Dehradun prison camp, nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas, was a stark contrast to the peaks Harrer longed to conquer. The camp was a melting pot of nationalities, each man carrying the weight of war and displacement. Harrer observed a shared longing for freedom, a yearning that mirrored his own. He knew he couldn't languish in captivity. Escape became Harrer's sole focus. He meticulously studied the camp's routines, searching for vulnerabilities. Among his fellow inmates was Peter Aufschneider, a fellow mountaineer and cartographer. Their plans were audacious, bordering on reckless. The mountains, once their goal, now stood as a barrier to freedom. Harrer knew their only chance lay in utilizing their skills and determination. Under the cloak of darkness, Harrer and Aufschneider made their move. The air was thick with tension as they slipped past sleeping guards. The Himalayas loomed large, a beacon of hope, and a reminder of the perilous journey ahead. They braved treacherous mountain passes, their bodies pushed to the limit. They evaded capture by relying on their wits and the kindness of strangers. Each step took them closer to freedom. Blizzards threatened to bury them, and starvation was a constant companion. They faced each challenge with grim determination. Their flight led them across the desolate Tibetan plateau. Exhausted, they stumbled towards the border, praying for sanctuary. Tibet, the roof of the world, was a world away from the battlefields of Europe. For Harrer and Aufschneider, it was a sanctuary, untouched by war. Their arrival in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, was bittersweet. Tibet, though isolated, was on the brink of political upheaval. Despite the political undercurrents, they found a sense of belonging in Lhasa. The Tibetans welcomed them with warmth and hospitality. Harrer immersed himself in the Tibetan way of life, fascinated by their customs and beliefs. Their skills as geographers and cartographers proved invaluable in mapping Tibet. Lhasa, the Forbidden City, lived up to its name. Nestled high in the Himalayas, it was a place shrouded in mystery and intrigue, a city that few outsiders had ever seen. It was a city frozen in time, its streets a vibrant tapestry of monks, markets, and prayers. The air was filled with the scent of incense and the sound of chanting, creating an atmosphere that was both serene and bustling. For Harrer, it was a sensory overload, a world both foreign and intoxicating. Every corner of Lhasa offered a new discovery, from the intricate designs of the temples to the colorful attire of the locals. The Potala Palace, perched high above the city, was a symbol of Tibet's spiritual and political heart. Its towering structure and intricate architecture were a testament to the rich history and culture of Tibet. Harrer was awestruck by the palace's majesty. He often found himself gazing at it, lost in thought, contemplating the centuries of history it had witnessed. As they integrated into Lhasa society, they formed deep bonds with their Tibetan neighbors. These relationships were built on mutual respect and curiosity, as both sides learned from each other. Harrer, fluent in Tibetan, was drawn to the people's warmth and spirituality. He spent countless hours in conversation with monks and locals, absorbing their wisdom and way of life. Life in Lhasa wasn't without its challenges. The city, while beautiful, was also a place of hardship, where the harsh climate and political tensions often made daily life difficult. Harrer witnessed the growing influence of China on Tibet, a development that filled him with unease. The presence of Chinese soldiers and officials was a stark reminder of the political changes sweeping through the region. He had escaped one conflict, only to find himself on the periphery of another. The tension in Lhasa was palpable, and Harrer couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding about the future of this beautiful yet troubled land. Fate had more in store for Heinrich Harrer. A chance encounter with a young boy, wise beyond his years, would alter his life. That boy was Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. Harrer was asked to become a tutor to the young Dalai Lama. Their relationship blossomed into a unique bond of friendship and mutual respect. Harrer shared his knowledge of geography, science, and Western culture. The Dalai Lama imparted his wisdom and vision for a peaceful world. Harrer was granted a unique window into Tibetan Buddhism and government. He witnessed the Dalai Lama's efforts to maintain Tibet's independence. The idyllic existence in Lhasa was shattered in 1950. The city, known for its serene landscapes and spiritual tranquility, was about to face an unprecedented upheaval. The Chinese, determined to bring Tibet under their control, invaded. Their military might was overwhelming, and the peaceful streets of Lhasa were soon filled with the sounds of marching soldiers and military vehicles. The shadow of the dragon had fallen upon the roof of the world. The majestic Himalayas, which once stood as a symbol of peace and isolation, now bore witness to the encroaching forces. The arrival of the Chinese army marked the beginning of a dark chapter in Tibet's history. Tanks rolled into villages, and soldiers established camps, asserting their dominance over the land and its people. Monasteries were destroyed, monks persecuted, and the Tibetan people oppressed. The cultural and spiritual heart of Tibet was under siege, as ancient monasteries crumbled and sacred texts were lost. Harrer felt a deep sense of responsibility for his Tibetan friends. Having lived among them and shared in their traditions, he could not stand idly by as their way of life was threatened. He used his connections to raise awareness of the atrocities in Tibet. Speaking to journalists and attending international meetings, Harrer became a vocal advocate for the Tibetan cause, hoping to garner global support. In 1959, the situation reached a boiling point. The tension in the streets of Lhasa was palpable, as crowds gathered and the air was thick with unrest. The Tibetan people rose up in a desperate rebellion, which was brutally suppressed. The clashes between Tibetan protesters and Chinese soldiers were fierce, but the might of the Chinese military was too great. The Dalai Lama fled into exile, and Harrer knew his time in Tibet was ending. As the spiritual leader of Tibet sought refuge, Harrer prepared to leave the land he had come to love, carrying with him the memories of a nation in turmoil. With a heavy heart, Harrer bid farewell to his Tibetan friends. He left behind a land torn apart by conflict. Returning to Austria, he found a country vastly different from the one he had left. He was a stranger in his own land, his experiences in Tibet marking him as an outsider. The most painful reunion was with his son Peter. Years of separation had created a chasm between them. Despite the challenges, Harrer was determined to share his experiences in Tibet. His book, 7 Years in Tibet, became an international bestseller. The years following Harrer's return were marked by personal turmoil and public acclaim. His book brought him both admiration and controversy. Amidst the whirlwind of public life, Harrer grappled with reconnecting with his son Peter. The years of separation had left an undeniable rift. Harrer persisted in his efforts to rebuild the bridge to his son. Slowly, a connection began to re-emerge. In the shared silence of a mountain peak, father and son found common ground. It was a journey of reconciliation and forgiveness. Heinrich Harrer's life was a testament to the power of the human spirit. His story continues to inspire and resonate with readers around the world. His book, 7 Years in Tibet, remains a timeless classic. Harrer is remembered as a passionate advocate for Tibetan independence. His life was one of contradictions, having been a member of the Nazi Party. He later renounced his Nazi past, expressing remorse. Despite controversies, Harrer's story remains a testament to the complexities of human nature. His legacy is a tapestry woven from threads of adventure, compassion, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Years later, Peter stood on the summit of a mountain, thinking of his father. He realized the mountains had served as more than just a backdrop for their reconciliation. They represented the challenges overcome and the love that had bridged the chasm of years. Peter felt a sense of profound gratitude for his father. Their shared passion for climbing was a lifeline and a path back to each other. The mountains stood as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. They were silent witnesses to their journey of healing and forgiveness.